The whole reason you got mired in this matrix in the first place is really one thing. You haven't been thinking independently for yourself almost at all in your life. Have you? You've been letting others think for you. You've been going along with the herd. And the reason you have is because actually thinking, true thinking, original thinking, is difficult work. And you're mentally lazy, and you have been your entire life. You don't actually want to do the serious contemplative work of examining and inquiring into the nature of reality and life and what's really going on in society and science and religion and spirituality and philosophy and medicine and nutrition and how to live a good life. You don't actually want to do the legwork because that involves serious labor, mental labor. You got to burn calories doing that. You got to rack your mind doing that. See, you just rather have the answers given to you. And as long as you take that attitude, you will forever be stuck in the social matrix. The only way to recognize and to break free of the matrix is to start to think very deeply, independently, methodically, without any biases, very truthfully, very self-honestly about what's really going on. And you have to think from scratch. Thinking from scratch means you don't take anything for granted. That means you don't take for granted that you're made out of atoms. You don't take for granted that you were born to parents. You don't take for granted that science is true. You don't take for granted that you're a man or a woman. You don't even take for granted that you'll die one day. Because all of that came from the social matrix and you can't really know any of it for sure. This is what I'm describing here. This is the beginnings of true skepticism. Not the kind of bullshit skepticism that you see others doing, where they cherry pick little things and they skepticize about that thing or that thing that they don't like. This form of skepticism, the way you know you're doing real skepticism is when it pains you to do it. Because as you're doing it, all of your favorite illusions are crumbling. Because you see, the way the social matrix got created is through a set of incentives and disincentives that are tied deeply to your, we might say, psychological or biological needs, however you want to say it. As an ego, your ego needs safety, security, shelter, food, love, approval, friendship, even things like relaxation and enjoyment. Your ego needs these things. So these are the hooks that the social matrix uses to take over your entire mind. It's done through peer pressure, which begins in kindergarten and preschool. Already the peer pressure begins there and then continues throughout your entire schooling and university days. You're constantly being peer pressured to conform to the system. It happens through brute force memorization, indoctrination throughout your entire schooling system and vocational training system. A blind acceptance of what adults say. You've been blindly accepting what adults say for the majority of your life. It happens through explanations and stories and myths that your parents and teachers give you as you're a little kid trying to ask questions about the nature of reality. They give you stories and explanations and myths that are all inadequate. And you foolishly accept their silly explanations for what's really going on. It happens through the linguistic categories that are baked into the very language that you use. And then, of course, all of this ultimately ties to the linchpin. The linchpin of all this is your need for love and approval. This is how they get you. This is how they get your mind. The reason it's possible to brainwash any mind is because every mind needs love and approval to survive and to be healthy. And so when a mind grows up in a dysfunctional environment, that mind will absorb the dysfunctional environment and those values, because if it doesn't, it's not going to receive the love and approval that it needs to survive. So it basically is forced into this bind, this existential bind of for example, if you grow up with racist parents, they're going to, in a sense, force you to adopt their racism, because if you don't, they won't approve of you and they won't love you. And because of this, you too will become a racist. You see how it works? And then that's going to get exacerbated by the books, media, internet, entertainment, and art that you select to enjoy and to imbibe. All of that will reinforce all of your biases that you got from your parents and your education system. And furthermore, you're going to have a sense of family obligation and loyalty. Your family will make you feel bad and guilty for not being loyal to them. And so will your friends. And by the way, so will your coworkers, for that matter, and your colleagues. Like, for example, if you go into the sciences and you become some scientist with a PhD, and then eventually, you start to question the entire science system, you start to deconstruct all of science, eventually your colleagues will start to feel like you have betrayed them, that you've stabbed them in the back. So there's going to be social obligations and loyalties placed upon you no matter where you are. And people will expect you to play by the game of the social matrix and not to question it, because the social matrix is ensuring the survival of the entire human species, you see.